Welcome to ITSE 1345. This is Competency 2.3, Chapter 3. Once again, getting back to Chapter 2 where we talked about the block and we talked about extracting information and bringing it into the block. Chapter 3 talks about managing data within this block structure. Now, one of the things that you do in databases is that going back to that payroll mechanism. Okay, so you extract the information and you have this stuff, and eventually you got to put this back into the database. So you have to insert this information back into the database. Also, another thing is that if a table does not exist to capture this information, you have to create the table before you put the data into it. So this chapter talks about manipulating not only the data to be able to be stuck into it, but also kind of hints about, you can create a table, which we'll work with as this course progresses. But one of the things that we need to look at is when you're extracting information and bringing it in, that takes a lot of time because you're fetching, and if you fetch the actual, so you have a block and you're going back and forth. Well, that takes time. We're also going to talk about a process where you can do this in a bulk fashion. That way it minimizes the fetching, so it makes it more expedient. Also, remember that in a database you collect information over time. But when you store the information in a database, going back to previous classes or previous instructions you should have received, that data is collected over time, but it's organized. And the classic example is a doctor's office where he may be open for 10 years and they collect a patient, but when you look it up, it's by last name, first name. So there's organization to the data. Well, if you go back to what I said earlier, that you have to kind of mirror the image on the PL SQL side that you do on the database SQL side, we need to be able to, one, collect information in bulk, and then we have to organize it as we bring it over. So this chapter talks about multiple items. One, using a query to extract the information, okay? Now, once again, you extract information. When you create the placeholder, okay, we're looking at the placeholder. Do you know the definition, the type of data you're going to be extracting? Well, sometimes you can. Like if it's letters, it's letters. If it's numbers, it's numbers. But, if you're really not sure what you're going to collect, there's a wildcard mechanism that allows you to extract. Now, what the wildcard mechanism is, it's called a percent type. Now, what this does, this is actually a program within a program that looks into the database, figures out if it's a letter, number, or date, and then will create a similar structure when you extract it. So there is a percent type that's a wildcard mechanism that allows you to extract information and bring it over. Now, this is only one item at a time. Now, if you're going to bring that's just like one field. If you want to bring more than one item, there's a row type. Percent row type. Now, what this allows you to do is bring everything that's associated with one record. Instead of just one field or a couple of fields, you bring the whole record over. Now, there's also what they call record type. So now what you can do is you have one item, and then of course there's what they call table. It's actually record of. And what this allows you to do is develop a process, just like you have a table in the database, to create a parallel structure in the PL SQL that will mimic a table in a database. So you have one field, one row, one table that you can create. And then once again, that you can do this in bulk and you have to organize it. Now the organization is called collections. And that allows you to sort the information as you bring it over to be able to manage it. Now, remember that we had that $400 from the previous example. So what you want to do is you want to put this back into the database. So you want to insert that. Okay? So there's a mechanism that allows you to insert information into the database. Now, the other thing you have to worry about is as you extract information, you want to identify a specific placeholder. So we had the $10 and the 40 hours. You want to be able to identify a specific placeholder. You want to put the $10 into something, and you want to put the 40 into something. So there's a command that allows you to put the data into a specific placeholder. Also, when you insert, now remember that when you're working with databases, if the table is locked or unlocked or whatever permission structure, so as you develop this PL SQL structure, you're also, I guess I can use the word fighting. You're fighting the idea of the construction of a database where a database has to be consistent. There are rules that govern how a database is structured to maintain the integrity of the database. So as you're doing the PL SQL, there's always this underlying shadow premise of the constraints of the consistency, integrity of the database that you have to maintain. And that creates a lot of issues that we will learn how to manage throughout this process. Now, one of the things that you have to do is, as you're doing this, there's always the commit. There's always the commit process. So understand that anytime you're doing something, somewhere along the line, you have to finish one item before you begin another item. And the commit, what the commit does is, once again, it's on the database side. You're telling the database, okay, I finished with this transaction. I'm going to go to the next transaction. So what we're looking at is bringing stuff via query, developing a process that will identify in a wildcard mechanism a field, a row, a bunch of rows that you're going to deposit in a table-like structure. The fact that you're going to bulk item to create a more efficient mechanism, and that you're going to organize the data as you bring it over. So these are the elements that we're going to talk about in Chapter 3.